Hello, everyone.
Hello, happy Friday, December 31st of 2021.
Give me 1 second.
Oh my goodness.
We're back after a long hiatus.
Yes.
All right, there we go.
All right.
Sorry about that. We're back. Whew, it's not Sovereign Sunday, but it's Sovereign Friday.
Sovereign Friday.
Sovereign beginning of the new year, 2022, which is going to be more sovereign than ever.
Yes.
As we continue on this path of increasing our embodiment of sovereignty. A lot of changes have happened since the last time we saw you guys. Our last show was last spring. We did the spring equinox show, and then we did one more show after that before we took our break. We've been going through a lot of different things, and we're going to share some of that today, and then we're going to set intentions for 2022.
Yes. First of all, we want to say thank you to everybody that has ever tuned in to our live stream, our love stream. Anyone who's ever shared it, liked, commented. Thank you to all of the people that have joined us in our ceremonies, in our offerings, who've gotten readings from us, and all the people we've met this year. We've met a lot of amazing people, and we're super grateful to everyone that's on this path with us.
Mm-hmm. And you may have noticed crawling around back behind me, we also got a new puppy this year, a few months ago. We have an 8-month-old lab, a German Shepherd mix. So he is very strong-willed and insisted on being up here with us while we're doing the show. So he may make some cameos. Now he's going to the floor. He may make some cameos and may do some whining because he is a little bit of a whiny puppy. But looks like he's going into his crate to have a nap. So maybe we won't get to see him. That's one of the major upgrades. And just a note on that, I was a stay-at-home dad for the first couple of years of my son's life. Having a puppy, way more challenging than having a human baby. I mean, like, you can put a diaper on a baby. You don't have to walk a baby every 2 hours. It's been quite a challenge to have a brand new puppy. But we learned a lot of lessons from having the puppy. Patience, non-attachment to like how I was used to having things done, like the way I'm used to having the house. Now we had to puppy-proof the house. Like, some of it has been very inconvenient, and but it's been teaching me and continues to teach me patience. I feel like we're finally, Cookie and I, the puppy's name is Cookie, we're finally at this place where we have this mutual respect and understanding. It took us a while. It was a little rough.
There was definitely a challenge of sovereignty in that dynamic as well,
Yeah.
because there's, especially a puppy needs to know that there's a strong leader of the pack. And if you as a dog parent or owner, or however you want to call yourself, are not in that place of in your power, if you're not centered, the dog can totally feel that, and it can be a total disaster. So there was a time where there was some of that power struggle.
Oh yeah, I was
that
power
caused a lot of
struggling big
chaos.
time with that puppy.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the huge like a really huge revelation of, like, oh my god, you're in a power struggle with a dog.
You can't fake it, right? The dog can sense how much in your sovereignty you are. You really can't fake it. So I could be saying the words, but if I wasn't really feeling the authority, if I was frustrated with him, or like even there were moments when I was angry and I'd be screaming and he would just bark back at me because he's not fazed by my fake show, my like deflated or shadow masculine coming out in an aggressive way. That's not sovereignty. And he knows that. So he's just like, dude, you're yelling at me, so I'm going to yell at you back because, I'm not going to obey you when you're acting like this. But that's why I say we've kind of gotten to this place now where I learned that lesson. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes because it was a part of a much bigger lesson that all tied together. Unless there's anything else you want to say, or I could get into that.
Jump right in.
All right. So For me, one of the things, I think one of the themes of 2021 for me was embodying my masculine in a more balanced way. So I've always been somebody that um, I'm not going to say feminine, but I've always been more comfortable with the feminine. I've always been very open with my feelings and very comfortable in that, like talking about my feelings and expressing myself that way. Um, I've never been into sports. I'm not very physical. I'm not a fighter. I've run from many fights in my life, literally. Like somebody would take the first swing and I would just take off. Um, so I haven't really, let me say this. I was called in this past year to step more into a balanced masculine role. Um, and I was challenged on that. Cookie challenged me. Um, I've been a part of this group called Sacred Sons. It's a men's work group, and they do retreats for men, and it's been really powerful. Another huge influence on my life in 2021, and they really helped me to learn these lessons of embodying a balanced, healthy masculine. And so at the Sacred Sons, they do this thing that's called Sacred Combat, and it's basically there's a ring and anybody can choose to get into the ring and any fighting style you like, boxing, MMA, grappling, whatever it is, the participants choose it. And so part of me felt attracted to it and like wanting to do it. And I was at the last or I was at one of the retreats last spring, and I'm standing there and I'm watching these fights, and I'm saying, yeah, part of me wants to do it, partially because I felt uncomfortable. That was one of the things I learned with the ice baths, right? I didn't want to do the ice baths. I hate the cold, but because I felt uncomfortable with it, I wanted to challenge myself to do it anyway. Well, this was kind of the same thing where I felt like, oh, I don't really want to do this, but I should challenge myself this way. So as I'm standing there watching these fights, my ego said, if you get in that ring, you're going to be humiliated in front of these men. Don't do it. I said, all right, fine. I gave in. I gave in to my ego, and I did not participate in the spring. Well, about a month ago, I was in Portland for another retreat, and they were doing the grappling again, and I did not fight this time. However, during the training that day, I did spar with one of my instructors, one of my group leaders, I should say. And it was the first time I had really ever done that. And man, it was exhausting. But the lesson that I learned from that, and actually I want to tell the story of the fighting that night. First of all, just to set the scene, we're on the coast of Portland. It's where the forest meets the sea, and we're on the beach. We're doing the sacred combat on the beach, and it's almost sundown. So these guys, they're choosing their opponents, they're setting their agreements. Then after each fight, they would each get on the microphone and talk about the fight. Like, oh, I appreciated this fighting style of this guy, or I really felt the compassion from him. And I was sitting there and I was like, wow, I was in tears. I was literally crying because I was so moved and touched by the fact that these men this wasn't fighting. This isn't barbaric, which is kind of what my initial reaction was. This is like barbaric. It's like toxic masculinity. It's like, men having to beat each other up. And I realized that's not at all what this was. This was men making an agreement out of respect and compassion for each other. And then playing. It was play, the way puppies play. We bring Cookie to the dog park every morning. And puppy play, the wrestling, it's an important part of dogs learning how to socialize with each other so that they're not barking or attacking other dogs because they don't see other dogs. They're always in the house and just going on walks with their owner, right? So all this is happening at the same time, right? Getting the puppy, going to the sacred combat. So it's all kind of like I'm putting these pieces all together. Anyway, fast forward to recently, there has been this guy in our neighborhood who has been doing some things in the neighborhood that have been upsetting people. And I felt very strongly that I needed to set a boundary with this guy and confront him. And so I was wrestling with how I'm going to go about doing this. Do I need to give me 5 more minutes on this? And if I'm not done telling the story, cut me off and we'll move on. I told her, you have to set boundaries with me because I'll go all day. So I really felt strongly I needed to set a boundary with this guy. So I very politely went up to him while he was engaging in one of these behaviors, and I asked him not to. He ignored me. He really, literally didn't even acknowledge me. Part of me thought maybe he's mentally ill. Then a couple of weeks later, now every time I see him doing it, it like irritates me. But I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? I already confronted him. He's not respecting it. So what am I going to do? And I would get triggered every time I saw him. I would get aggravated. And I felt helpless. I felt like I have no power over this situation. I did not feel like I was embodying masculinity or sovereignty. I felt really like off my sovereignty because of it. And so again, a few more times I tried. One of the times I really lost it with him, and I was screaming at him and cursing at him, but that didn't do anything either. So I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, he's there again. So I sit down next to him and I try the nice way again. And when he didn't respond. He does like this thing where he likes to mumble nonsense, like craziness about the Illuminati and Skull and Bones and stuff like that, like just to make me think he's crazy. So I said, what do I have to do? Do I have to go upstairs and get a bat? Now I had the dog with me. So I didn't want, if I was going to get into a scuffle with this guy, I wasn't going to be with the dog. So I brought the dog back up. I went back down, or I came up, I got a bat. And I started back towards the apartment door, and I stopped myself and I said, do you really want to do this? It's Friday. And if you get into a fight with this guy and you get arrested, you're probably going to be in holding until Monday when you get arraigned. So is that how you want to spend your weekend? We had a cacao ceremony planned that weekend. But something said, yes, go. So I stepped outside the door. I get down to the lobby. Again, now I see him through the window. He's still there. And I stopped and I said, okay, you're sure? You sure you want to go through with this? As I'm like hesitating and just thinking about it, he stands up and he starts to walk away. So I was like, do it. So I go out and he's starting to walk away. And I called after him and I was like, look, I'm done with this behavior. The neighbors here aren't going to tolerate it. Do not come back here. And I had the bat in my hand. And he yelled, he turned around and he yelled something. He cursed at me. I don't remember exactly what he said. And I said, if you come back, I'm going to fuck you up. Just like that. And I had a bottle of, I had a bottle in my hand and I threw the bottle for dramatic effect. It was a little bit of like chest beating, right? So then when I did that, he turned around, he came back. But it's funny because he didn't really come up to me. He started back towards me, but still kind of kept a distance. But this was the first time he was actually even acknowledging me, looking me in the eye. And I could see like his consciousness. I could see that we were finally communicating instead of him just like ignoring me. And he said, well, come on, let's fight. And I said, now that I had his attention, I was like, can't you just be a considerate person? Why does it have to come to this or something like that? And he goes, suck my rant. And I said, if that's what it's going to take you to leave. And he goes, oh, he acted like he was all offended by it. And he storms off. So now as I'm coming back into the building, I realize I don't have all those feelings of like the adrenaline dump and the cortisol from potentially getting into a fight. I've always, anytime there was ever going to be a physical confrontation, because I do not enjoy it, I don't like it, I always have those feelings. And then you feel sick afterwards and you're trembling. It didn't happen. So I realized, oh, this is the difference between like getting into a barroom brawl or a street fight and consciously and awarely, with awareness, setting a boundary and being willing to defend that boundary with physical force if necessary. My body, I was in control. My consciousness was in control. My body understood my consciousness was in control. I didn't feel like a victim to the situation. I wasn't in fear. If the guy decided he wanted to fight, I was ready. I had the bat, so I felt like, all right, at least that's a little bit of an evening. He's a bigger guy than me, so I felt like the bat would even the score a little bit. Anyway, it didn't come to that, which I'm grateful for. At the same time, I'm really grateful for the lesson. And it's funny because I have an oracle deck. It's a fairy oracle deck that I work with, because I've been digging into my Celtic heritage. And fairies are a big part of the Celtic mythology and storytelling. And so I have this fairy oracle deck, and I had pulled the card the day before this happened, this last confrontation. I pulled a card, and I forget the troll's name. It's this little gremlin, and the gremlin's purpose is to exaggerate our fears so that we have to face them. So this is what this guy was. He was the embodiment of this like Loki, playful trickster energy of he was going to mess with me until I stood up for myself. And do you know that he disappeared? He has not been back in 2 weeks.
And I was actually thinking about that today because I was walking the dog, and I was like, I haven't even seen him walking around the neighborhood because I used to see him before in or around the neighborhood. And I was like, oh, I'm like, this guy totally disappeared. So it was pretty interesting.
It was really an amazing lesson, and I struggled with it for a few weeks. I struggled with it in the conflict with Cookie and the conflict with this guy, but really it was such a beautiful and powerful lesson. I now, in hindsight, as Carla says, I can really appreciate it and even appreciate the conflict and almost feel like this guy, maybe he was an angel, like just coming to teach me that lesson. He played that role of the villain, taught me that lesson, and then
plot twist. What if it all is that? What if it's all an angel? What if it's all just consciousness trying to teach us lessons so that we can embody the things that we learn, right? Because it's one thing to know, to learn something, to go experience sacred combat and understand that. And it's another thing to truly embody it and put it into practice. Because what's the point of us learning all of these things if when we come back into the real world after a long retreat, we don't embody this with the people that we interact with on a daily basis? So that's a beautiful lesson of bringing those teachings into real life, right? And I think sometimes when we are in spiritual circles or spiritual groups, we tend to separate the two, right? Oh, that when I'm in ceremony, this is who I am. When I'm in at my retreat with my friends, with the people that are doing the work, this is how we exist. But when I come back into the real world, those people don't understand those rules, so they wouldn't understand if I tried to engage in combat. But that's the thing, right? Once you come in with the energy of sacred combat, it all becomes sacred, whether the other person knows it or acknowledges it or not. You're embodying what you've learned, and you're pouring that into the real world, right?
He could feel the energy of it.
Yeah.
The same way Cookie could feel the energy of it. He knew that I was willing to defend and stand up for these boundaries I was trying to set. And he felt the energy, even if I didn't say, let's set some ground rules for the sacred combat. Right?
Exactly.
He understood the energy of it, and it all resolved in, I think, the way it was supposed to. So yeah, that was one of the profound themes, I think, for me in 2021 was really learning how to, and not that I'm done in any way, this was just the first lesson this year.
The tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. But I'm really grateful for it. It's really been good.
Good job.
Thank you. You let me go over 5 minutes though. You did not enforce the boundary. You need to work on your masculine.
But the story was really good. Like Elisa says, hi Lisa, hi Russell, hi Kendall. We're live streaming simultaneously on Instagram for the first time, so this is going to be interesting and fun. Yeah, so that was a huge lesson, and I think for us this year it was a lot of coming into balancing that, right? Balancing what we were learning in the spiritual aspect and bringing it into real life. How do we bring this into something tangible? And you know, one of the things we've always said about Sovereign in the city is you don't have to move to the woods. You don't have to go live in a secluded place. Danny used to say at one point, if I take the next steps in my spirituality, I'm going to have to become a monk. And
I thought I was going to have to be Jesus or Buddha.
yeah, and so here we are living in Brooklyn, dealing with very Brooklyn things, and
Yeah.
and bringing that spirituality, those spiritual teachings into that daily life, and that's the work, right? That's where we really embody what we've learned.
That's when we're bringing heaven down to earth.
Exactly. Hi, Christina.
Is in those moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of interesting experiences this year. This year we started working on offering ceremonies. We did a lot of ceremonies this year,
Yeah.
and that was really exciting. At one point in the beginning of the year, we had set the intention to open up a kava and cacao bar, where we were going to introduce ceremony to people through that, through having a storefront and having people come in and being able to sit in ceremony with us. But it didn't happen. And as time went on, we realized all of these mandates and all of these changes. We were like, wow, that was the best thing that we didn't actually open up the storefront, because we would have been in a really difficult position. We would have either had to go against our beliefs, or we would have had to engage in situations where we could potentially be shut down, lose our business, and all these other things. And, you know, when you start to surrender and trust the will of the universe, the will of God, or however you want to call it, you start to realize how new doors start to open up. And we had some really beautiful ceremonies. We met some amazing people over this year. We did some great ceremonies with magnificent turnout in New Hampshire, at Pork Fest, at Light and Liberty Fest. And then here in New York City, we were invited in on a couple of occasions and to host ceremonies for people. And it's really beautiful to start seeing our community grow. We're starting to connect with more people, and more people are interested in the ways of community and ceremony. And you know, earlier we were talking to our friends at Omziel Healing Sanctuary, which is where we do our ice baths. And you know, we were talking about the fact that we can look at the things that are happening out in the world and get stressed about it, and get frustrated and angry and want to run away and let's move somewhere else where they can't get us. But the truth is that as a result of all of these changes, as a result of the mandates of things, the shadows coming up, right, we are finding our community. And I think in the years where that wasn't the case, in the year where we were just cruising on by because things were okay, we weren't connecting with community as much. This has created a need for community, and more people are turning to community. And who do I connect with? Who do I resonate with? Who do I talk to? Who can I come and our spiritual work started coming to the forefront. And we were actually expressing how grateful we were for all of the changes that have happened in this past year, because it has opened the doors for us to connect with more people and start building these stronger communities.
Yeah. The pandemic has kind of forced a lot of people to get more creative about problem solving. And so we, instead of opening the storefront, now we're doing private ceremonies for people. And honestly, they're such profound and powerful experiences. I don't know that they would have happened in the context of a store, of a cafe, right? To be able to do a private ceremony with, 10 people where we're all focused and sitting together, rather than being able to try to talk to people one-on-one about sacredness. And
as people are coming in and out,
Yeah.
there's a lot of commotion happening.
A lot of healing, and that's not even patting ourselves on the back. We've received a lot of healing from the ceremonies that we've done, but we've also gotten amazing feedback from others as well, and it's just been really beautiful. And that was also one of the things for me that has been a real struggle this year, because I do construction and I'm tired of it. I don't want to work hard anymore. I want to shift or I am shifting into a life of service, of ministry, of doing ceremonies professionally, being supported by that. So we're shifting into that, and it's happening. We're getting hired to come do ceremonies, and it's been amazing. So it's slow. It's not like I just from one day to the next quit construction and just start doing ceremonies, but we have made that conscious decision to shift our lives that way, and it's manifesting, happening, and
Yeah.
we're being given opportunities now, after we took that the chance of refocusing that way.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that helped us, and we started shifting, especially this past month, um, we started setting the intention to have ceremony every morning. So every morning, Danny and I sit and have a cacao ceremony. We prepare our cacao. We sit together at the dining table. We set intentions for our cacao and to connect with the spirit of our business.
I'm having cacao right now.
To connect with the spirit of our business, what the vision that we want to share with others. And a lot of stuff comes up in these morning meetings and these morning ceremonies. And it's such a beautiful way to start our day. And it's something that we like to share with people when we offer ceremonies, is that you don't need to have a huge production to make a ceremony. I mean, you can literally sit at your table with your cup of water, your cup of coffee, your tea, your green juice, whatever you drink first thing in the morning, and set intentions for it. Offer gratitude for the water, right? Offer gratitude for the tea, for the leaves, for the plants, for the earth. If it's a green juice, offer gratitude for Mother Earth for providing the nutrients that are going to enter your vessel, and ask that you can be an open vessel for whatever spirit God wants to bring out in you, for you, to the rest of the world. And the more we do this, the more in tune we feel, the more aligned we feel with our purpose. And then the opportunities just come up. Like Danny said, that card comes up. So we pull cards in the morning too. Then that card comes up, and now it's there, right? It's a thought. In it plants a seed. So now this interaction happens, and he can be really angry, or he can look at it as, wait a minute, is this my fear manifesting? Has my fear manifested in human form, and how am I going to approach this fear? And when we start looking at all things through the lens of ceremony, through the lens of learning, through the lens of service, then everything just shifts dramatically. That interaction could have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there's 1,000 ways I could have handled it. I could have called the police, which is against my principles. I don't want to call the police. And I struggled with that. Like, how else am I going to stop this from happening? And I know my other neighbors would have a problem calling the police. So part of me was like, well, you could just call the police and tell yourself that somebody else was going to call them anyway. And I really didn't. I would have not been integrity to do that. I don't believe in calling police or depending on government. I'm an anarchist, and I'm very committed to those principles. So once I got rid of that idea, that that was not something I was willing to do. And then imagine imagine that I would have called the police, and what if they would have killed him? What if they would have come and shot him? And how would I have felt? But anyway, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, there's some comments coming in that are not really appropriate, distracting me. I'm sorry. What was the spam comments? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so that was a huge lesson. What else? I mean, I feel like this year was, especially the second half of the year, we kind of dove deep. We went really, really deep into our shadow work, and in a way that didn't feel overwhelming. And I think that this is something that I would like for people to know, is that once you start getting into the routine of doing your shadow work, of observing your reactions, of observing your emotions, that the shadow work doesn't feel doesn't feel scary anymore. It doesn't feel overwhelming or as overwhelming anymore. You can get into the shadow work and it's just part of the process. You just flow with it. Oh, here's something to look at, let's just keep flowing with it. We got sick back in November.
Mhm.
And so for me, that brought up some childhood stuff that I didn't realize. And it was a very interesting way of looking at my shadow work. So Danny got sick first. And so Danny was sick, was home in bed. Xander was with us for 2 weeks straight. Usually he's here half the week. So he was here for 2 weeks straight.
His mother and his grandparents all had COVID, and his grandparents were in the hospital. So, and his mother was sick to take care of him. So we kept him, even though I was sick.
And we have the puppy also. So I felt like I had all of these responsibilities all of a sudden, and it felt pretty overwhelming because usually, if he's here half of the week, then I know the other half, it's like, okay, I can take a break and get my stuff done. So it was really overwhelming to have that for 2 weeks, and then I started feeling sick too. And once I started feeling sick, one of the first things Danny said to me was, "You're okay." And that triggered something right away where I was like, why is he telling me I'm okay? I don't feel okay. Why would he say that to me? Is he dismissing it? Is he saying that it doesn't matter if I don't feel okay, that I have to be okay anyway? And it triggered a lot of things in me that I didn't realize. I didn't realize it in the moment. I just knew that it irritated me that he said that. And then a couple of days later, I had a slight fever, and I was like, okay, well, let me take a test to make sure before I go spend time with my parents. And when I tested positive, Danny was like, oh, what made you get tested? And that irritated me even more. And I was like, well, because I wanted to know before I go spend time with my parents. And then I said, don't worry, I don't need you to take care of me. And that shocked him. And after I said it, it shocked me too, where I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Why don't I want my husband to take care of me? Or why am I feeling defensive that I'm like, oh, I don't need you to take care of me. I'll take care of myself. I got really hyper and really defensive, and it was a little bit shocking. And one of the things that we've learned in terms of shadow work and healing ourselves is to ask ourselves, when we're triggered, what age am I right now? And I realized that it was triggering my childhood self, my grammar school age self. And when I was little, both of my parents were working. My mom worked in a factory, my dad worked in a restaurant. They were constantly working. We had a babysitter that picked us up after school, and it was always rush, rush, rush. My parents couldn't take days off from work for anything. It had to be a real emergency. So there were times where I didn't feel well and I didn't want to go to school and I wanted to stay home sick. And my parents said, no, sorry, you can't stay home. It's just not an option. And it was more like, you're not dying. So you're not dying. There's no need for you to stay home. And as an adult, I could look back and say, okay, I understand my parents, the position they were in. It was difficult for them, the logistics of having to pay a babysitter to take care of me for the day, to make sure that there was a babysitter available to take care of me for the day. And do they really want to open it up for any time I say I don't feel well to stay home? Especially as as children, there were times where I just didn't want to be in school. It wasn't that I didn't feel good, I just didn't want to go to school. And so I could see the reasons why perhaps they were hesitant to let me stay home from school. But that led me to believe as a child that I didn't deserve the care, right? My 10-year-old self was thinking, oh, maybe you don't deserve the care. Maybe, the other kids, their parents let them stay home from school, but not you. You don't deserve that, right? Those were the voices that those things my ego was telling me at that age. As an adult, I could empathize with my parents and say, okay, I understand it, because as a parent, as a co-parent, I understand the difficulties of taking care of a child all day long, right? The logistics of when we have to rearrange schedules and how complicated things can get. And especially for my parents at that time, I could see that. But what hadn't healed was the 10-year-old me, right? The 10-year-old me never got told it's okay for you to be sick. It's okay for you to need rest. It's okay for you to stay home and rest if you don't feel well. So I had to sit with myself, speak to my younger self, and say, it's okay to be sick. It's okay for you to want to stay home in bed, and you deserve to stay home in bed. It's totally fine. And I realized that I would feel guilty. I'm still working through those feelings, because there are still moments where I'm tired and I just want to lay in bed for the day. And if Danny's out working, then I kind of feel guilty if I'm home in bed when I know he's having a rough day at work. It's almost like I feel like I need to be doing something too, so that he's not feeling like he has to do all the heavy work while I'm home just laying in bed watching TV all day, which is the joke we have at home now. So for me, that was a huge lesson of allowing myself to rest, allowing myself to receive the help, allowing myself to care for myself when I'm tired, when I'm not feeling well, and that I don't have to justify the need for self-care. So that was a huge and I think one of the things that was so surprising to me was recognizing the difference between understanding things as an adult and then having to talk to myself as a child, and speak to the inner child, speak to that wounded inner child. And the thing is, when you do something like that, when you speak to your inner child, you bring that part back in, right? That's the soul fragmentation. When you're young and you experience a trauma or a disappointment, there's a part of you that kind of shuts down, right? And is like, oh, I'm not allowed to stay home and be sick. I'm not allowed to take care of myself. Let me just shut down and not ask for that ever again, right? Because I don't deserve it. And when you start healing those parts of yourself, then that part of you comes back. That part of you that's like, oh yeah, I don't feel well. I can ask to stay home. I can allow myself to stay home in bed and rest. And then you start coming back to yourself, and that's part of you being more whole, right? You're no longer operating in defense mechanisms. So now next time Danny tells me I'm okay when I'm not feeling well, I can say, yeah, I'm going to be okay, but right now I don't feel okay, and I think I just need rest. And I can feel comfortable in saying that without it being defensive, like, I don't need you to take care of me, I'll take care of myself. But that was a huge lesson, and interesting how those patterns can continue, right? Because I could just as easily been like, okay, whatever, I had an attitude, and we would have just ignored it and left it like that. And next time that would have happened, it would have gotten worse, right? I would have gotten defensive again. I would have said, you never care about me, you don't care about how I feel. And he would have been super confused, because he has no idea the experience I had as a child and how that marked my ability to rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's been a struggle for us, because over the years, that has been Danny's thing, where he'll tell me, like, just rest, just take a break. So now,
Even right before we got on the air, she was like running around doing all this stuff. I was like, I don't, she talks about all the energy we put into the show, but then she's running around cleaning before we're going to do the show. Why?
No, I was knitting before.
Oh, well, yeah, right before the show, but earlier.
Yes, earlier in the day.
I wanted to say that one of the things that I really like about doing the morning.
Hi, Antonio.
One of the things that I really enjoy about the morning ceremonies was that, since getting the dog, he wakes us up sometimes 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to go out. He's a puppy, he can't hold it as long. And so I miss the time where when we first wake up, we would cuddle in bed for a little bit before one of us had to get up. And, that the puppy that's one of the things that I was really kind of angry about with the dog, that he kept waking us up so early, and I'd be like, this motherfucker. So, but now we're not cuddling per se, but we are spending quality time together. So that's like 30 minutes of quality time that we're getting together every morning. That's how we're starting our day. It's like such a nicer, even if we weren't like talking to God as well, like even if we weren't giving gratitude and centering ourselves spiritually in that time, just spending time, that quality time together is nourishing in the morning before I go out to spend my day. My work day is a lot less aggravating. I'm not focused on the aggravation of the work as much as I am like the residual feelings of having that quality time with my beloved. So
Yes. And I think, that kind of goes into our love languages also, right? Which is something that we've explored a lot this year as well.
mhm.
The fact that we have very different love languages. For me, it's definitely quality time. So when we have that time in the morning, where we are present with each other, where we speak to each other, our intentions, our plans, the things that we are looking to accomplish for the day, for the week, of the ideas that we have, talking about the dreams. I dream a lot, and I do a lot of work in my dreams. So when I wake up, I just want to share. I'm like, oh my God, I had this dream. And so being able to have that time together definitely sets the tone in a different way,
Mhm.
for not just for our personal days, but for our relationship as well, right?
Yeah, of
Sometimes
course.
there were times where we would wake up and we each kind of go about our day, do our own thing. And when you have that foundation of the first 30 minutes of your day is spent together being present, that creates a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, sometimes I would come home after work and I had an aggravating day. I'm exhausted, my back hurts. It's harder to get back into that intimacy. And days turn into weeks sometimes, right? Where you're not really connecting the way you really want to be. And you end up becoming a little bit cranky with yourself, but also like subconsciously with your partner, as if the lack of intimacy is their fault. And so that just continues to drive the rift, to widen the rift between you. So I feel like our morning ceremonies are kind of preventative medicine against that.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
highly recommend them. And we love cacao as an alternative to coffee. When I learned that coffee just shuts off your body's ability to know you're tired, I didn't know this. I thought you drink coffee, you get energy. Apparently, no, you don't get energy. It just shuts off your body's ability to know it's tired. So basically, you're running on fumes. You're drinking coffee, your body, you don't consciously know you're tired, so you just keep going, 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 and you're burning
And then
yourself
that's why
out.
you crash afterwards when the coffee wears off.
And then you crash and you're burning yourself out. So that's why we ended up switching to cacao, because not only because we do the cacao ceremony, it's just because it's a nutritious way to start the day. It actually gives you energy and nutrition. But like Vanessa said, I mean, you can do that with coffee. It doesn't have to be, or water. If you're familiar with Masaru Emoto and the experiments he did with water, where the water that he spoke positive messages to, when it crystallized when he froze it crystallized into these beautiful snowflake patterns. But water that he spoke negatively to, cursing at, and just negative affirmations, or not negative affirmations, but insults, I guess. um, when it crystallized, it was all deformed. So that was like kind of like an illustration um,
Of the power
of the
of your
power
words, and the
of
power,
intent.
yeah, and the water, right? The water, what you're putting into your body. So you can literally have a
Bless your
glass of
water before you
water,
drink it.
yeah, bless it, speak words of affirmation, thank you for nourishing me. And for me, it's also about connecting with nature. So that was another thing that we did this year, was that we started digging more into our indigenous roots.
Mhm.
We are going to be speaking, we're going to have a guest on the show in a few weeks. Our friend Kale is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about re-indigenization. There's a lot of talk these days about decolonizing, and we love the concept of re-indigenization. And so for us, that has meant digging into our indigenous roots. For me, it's my Aztec roots. For Danny, it's his Celtic roots. And as we start looking into these indigenous ways, we realize that they're all very similar.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I was, one of the things I realized, well, yeah, they're all very similar, because all of these indigenous ways are rooted in the connection to nature. So they're all of the mythology, all of the ideas, all of the ways of life are connected to nature. the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the just in general, the seasons, the celestial bodies. It's all a reflection of that. And so as we started um, learning about our indigenous roots, we realized that they were very similar in so many ways. And in doing so, we began to connect to nature more and realize, like, for example, when you drink water, you're connecting to the water element. And what does that look like? And are you thanking the water? Are you thanking the earth for providing the water? Are you thanking the earth? You know, do you go out and ground your feet, right? Do you plant your feet on the actual earth? We do that a lot. We connect to fire. We connect to all of the elements as often as possible. And in doing so, we realized it was easier to flow with those cycles as well. And it's a lot harder to be in resistance when you're flowing with the cycles of nature. So that's been a really fun lesson.
And it's not, I mean, it's not that difficult for me to be in resistance. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, as I've said on the show before, I like to do things the hardest way possible, although I'm trying to get out of that habit. But
That's a nice story you've got there.
I have been that type of person.
Yes, we're moving out of that and starting to flow.
So what are our intentions for 2022? I know for me, aside from becoming less resistant and trying to get more into flow with nature, which includes and encompasses balancing my masculine and feminine so that I could be more of the healthy versions of both. Moving into a life of service, moving more into professionally speaking, getting away from construction work and more into ceremonial work. That is really probably my and to embody the sovereignty and the confidence that comes that then allows abundance to flow. That's what I'm working on, is allowing abundance to flow through me, to let go of the stress of worrying about I need to have a job. Doing cacao ceremonies isn't a job. You can't support yourself that way. And there's a scripture in Matthew 6 that says that if the grass in the field grows and the birds in the air have food and they don't work, if God takes care of them, how much more will he take care of you? So I've really been trying to internalize that and realize that I can step away from that construction work. I don't have to be super worried or super like left brain, logical mind, masculine. I can balance that with the faith, with more the feminine side of flowing in love and compassion and faith and hope that I'm going to be taken care of. And I know I'm going to be taken care of. I always have been. And that doesn't mean that there aren't struggles. There are always struggles, but with struggles come lessons. And then on the other side of that struggle or lesson is a blessing. So that's what I mean by flowing in abundance. I don't mean that I'm going to be rich and never have money problems again or never have challenges ever again. I don't even want that. But just that I'm not going to be swinging. I don't want to swing a hammer anymore. I want to connect with people. That's what I really enjoyed. You know, we hadn't done the show for a while, and a friend of ours invited us on his podcast. And after we got off, I was having trouble. Vanessa was asking me earlier that day or the day before, well, what do you want to do creatively? Like, what kind of creative outlet do you want to do? Like, and I was struggling with the answer. And then we did the interview, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I love this connection, the being in the flow, connecting with people in the audience, the comments that come through, and the feedback that we get from other people when they see us. Oh, I love this episode. Oh, this really helped. Like, that is what I really live. That's what lights me up. And so I knew, I was like, that's what I want to do. We've got to restart the show. We've got to get back into it with gusto. I want to put a lot more. So we're going to be making a lot of changes and upgrades. And I'm going to be playing around a lot with the technology of how to make the show better. Of course, we're always looking to expand our heart space so that we're continuing to share from our heart with you guys, so that it's always that none of it's fluff, right? We don't want to be fluff. I saw a meme today that it was like, stop with the fluff and just open your heart and like, like Instagram influencer type stuff that's like fluffy and it looks good and it's shiny and glittery, but no heart.
But yeah, no real substance.
We don't want to do that. We want to be giving of our hearts. That's why we started this podcast, was to just really share. And I mean, we've shared some pretty deep stuff, like honestly, stuff that we really don't even talk to our families about, although if they're watching the show. But we really want it to be us sharing our hearts with you. And it's not like, again, we've said this many times, we're not gurus and we're not here to like, tell you what to do or how to live your lives. We're just sharing what is working for us. And if you find some value in that, that's awesome. And that's a blessing. And that's really what we want to do, is bless others.
Yep.
That's my 2022 intention. What's yours?
What's my intention? My intention is also to be more vulnerable. I can be vulnerable in this setting when I'm with you. I have a hard time sometimes putting myself out there a little bit more. So I'm trying to get out there a little bit more this year and share more of my story, more of the things that I'm working through, of the lessons. We've learned some really valuable lessons. And I think that I agree with what you said about us sharing in vulnerability. And yeah, we're not gurus, but I think for me, what this is about is creating community, right? Opening up the conversation so that the things that we go through, everybody goes through. And sometimes we don't talk about it. We put up these social media lives where everything's great, everything's wonderful.
Flexing for social media, right?
Yeah. And when we're
flexing our shadows,
we realize that when we've shared things like that, people have responded and said, "Oh my God, yeah, that's happened to me too," or "I'm struggling through that." When we sit in ceremony and open up the circle for sharing, what ends up happening is people share these really deep and vulnerable things, and as a community, we hold them and we hold space for them as they work through it. We offer the advice that anybody in the circle has. We are all learning from each other, teaching each other. We're all walking each other home, as they say. And it's beautiful to be able to create those spaces for people for all of us to do the work, because we're in there doing the work as well. The work never ends. So yeah, I think for me, it's being more outspoken, offering myself to be of service a lot more, by being vulnerable, by being open. And I feel like I had another
producing more content
for sure. Yeah. I think I have a lot of things that I have in my head half written. So my plan is to be a little bit more organized this year so that I can get out some more content and we can share as much as we can, as much as we're led to share. Mm-hmm. And all of the things that we share have always been led through the heart, mm-hmm. through our experiences, through the things that we've gone through. And we realize that the things we go through are not just meant to be challenges for us, God trying to punish us. These are things that are meant to mold us as human beings and to help us to help each other, right? And it's,
ultimately to expand consciousness.
Yeah, to expand the consciousness of the collective, of our brothers and sisters, right? Of everybody out here on the planet. And when we do it openly and we do it together, it happens quicker than if mm-hmm. we're just here sitting, holding on to our lessons and everybody struggling individually. We can come together and help each other. And we saw that a lot in our Light and Liberty ceremonies. There were a lot of people that came together, shared their stories, and it's such a beautiful thing to be in community and share those things, and we connect on a deeper level. And I think that we're shifting as a society into that. And I'm really excited for this new year. My best friend earlier sent me a message, and we were wishing each other a happy new year, and she was like, "And happy new world." She was like, "It's a new world," and it really is. And I'm really excited to see all the people showing up in this new world. And I think that a lot of us are here trying to be vulnerable and open and sharing what we know, what we have, the pieces of the puzzle that we have, and we can all put it together for the new world.
Amen.
All right, what else we got?
I feel
I think we're
I
done.
feel complete. Yeah. I mean, I want to thank everybody who showed up today. We do have a few announcements, so don't go anywhere. But I do want to thank everybody. You know, I know it's New Year's Eve. Everybody's busy. Maybe people are getting ready to go out. Although I know in the age of COVID, we don't go out anymore. So I don't very often.
We're having ceremony tonight.
We're having ceremony with the two of us tonight. That's going to be beautiful. And so I do want to thank everybody who took time out of their New Year's Eve to spend with us. We appreciate you. We love you. And this really is for you. As far as the announcements, I just kicked the Instagram. As far as the announcements, we have some exciting shows coming up. And we already plugged Kale, but let's plug him again. He's going to be on January 9th. That is our next show, next Sunday. And we're going to be talking about re-indigenization, as Vanessa said. And then the following week, the 23rd, we are so excited to have Charlie and Shelly Wininger. Some of you probably know about them. Charlie is the author of the book Listening to Ecstasy, The Transformative Power of MDMA. Vanessa and I have experienced the transformative power of MDMA. We were on the Today Show talking about it a few years ago. You may remember that's what kind of sparked this podcast to come into creation. And we are so excited. The book is amazing. So if you want to read the book before the show next week, Charlie and Shelly.
It's also on Audible if you just want to listen to it.
Yes, true. Shelly and Charlie are just beautiful people. And they invited us to their house for Christmas for a Christmas potluck with other psychonauts. And it was psychonauts, for those who don't know, it's not like psychos. It's it's people that use psychedelics
to expand their consciousness.
Right. And they invited us to their potluck, and it was just a really beautiful night of sharing. It was a ceremony. And we are so excited to have them on the show to tell their story, which is a beautiful story as well. And then we were invited to speak at the Greater Reset. So some of you may have heard about this, the Great Reset, which was one of the UN programs, and it's more corporate fascism coming down in the under the guise of humanitarian aid. But the Greater Reset is kind of this spiritual anarchist alternative, and we were invited to speak about spiritual sovereignty. So we are taking a road trip down to Texas. They are going to be filming in Texas and Mexico. They're going to be live streaming from those two locations. But you can sign up at thegreaterreset.org. It's free. You can watch the whole conference. It's 4 days, I believe, 4 or 5 days. Starts on January 26th, thegreaterreset.org. And you get free access to all the speakers. And if you want to save it, they have a pass that I believe is $100, and you can download and save all of the speeches. Amazing people are going to be participating in this. Ben Swan is speaking. Joel Salatin, Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy is speaking. I mean, like, these are the people that we're going to be on stage with. It's crazy. We're going to be on stage with Robert F. Kennedy.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah. So check out thegreaterreset.org. I'm really excited about this.
I'm excited too.
That we were invited to participate in the Greater Reset. So it's going to be in Austin or right outside of Austin.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it. And if you don't already, please follow us on socials. In the age where, especially during COVID, they really ramped up the censorship. So we like to plug the censorship-free sites like Minds.com, Float App, and Odyssey. These are 3 sites that are run by anarchists, and they do not believe in censorship. So they're not going to censor your content if you talk about how you didn't want to get the vaccine. You can follow us there. Of course, we're also on all the mainstream sites as well.
Sorry. Hi, Lane. Hi, Kendall. We love you guys too.
So you can follow us on these.
On Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube.
And if you really love our content and you want to help support us so that we can I can move out of construction and more into ceremony, you can check us out on Patreon. And we have some cool perks on there, including some of Vanessa's artwork. I will have art of Vanessa's artwork for next week's show, and we will give you an opportunity to buy her artwork at the end of the show. How about that?
Awesome.
She says awesome, but her face is like nervous. She's like, oh.
Yes. But I'm allowing myself to be more open.
I know, you're working on it.
I'm working on it. We want to wish you all a magnificent 2022.
Blessings on blessings on blessings in 22.
Lots of abundance, lots of love, lots of ease. Ease, I think, is a good one. Lots of flow.
I receive that.
May we all flow with the changing times. May we surrender and trust that the universe, spirit, God, we are taken care of at all times. And I'm grateful to all of you for being part of our community, for being part of our circle, for being on this earth during these times with us. This is amazing. We are living some exciting times.
The challenges are pretty exciting, living under like outright corporate fascism in the United States.
It's all fun. The world, the universe is our playground, and I'm super excited that we get to be here with all of you amazing people. Thank you so much, and we wish you just an amazing year.
Happy New Year! And by the way, if you want to get in contact with us to have a private ceremony for you, kava, cacao, psychedelics, sovereignlove.nyc is our new website. Check that out, and we love you all.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year. You want to end that one?